the Liz Table, a narrow side table that is the best-selling table of 25 and pine. To make this table, you will need the Liz Table template from our website, a router with a template bit, double-sided tape to tape the template to the piece of wood that you will be making into a table, and sandpaper and the finish of your choosing, whether that's stain or polyurethane. First, you're going to use your double-sided tape to adhere the template to your piece of wood. Make sure it's stuck on there nice and tight. I normally just double check and make sure that it's on there before using my router. And then using your router, you will follow the template. Make sure your bearing is lined up with the top of the template. You will repeat this with both the top and the bottom piece of lumber that you're choosing for the top and the bottom of your table. Using this template, you can also make your table longer, wider, or longer in depth. To do this, you'll have to move your template down the piece of wood. I recommend using new tape each time you move the template. Then you will want to use your second piece of wood as the bottom of your table, and you'll use the first piece that you just cut with the longer or wider template to create the second one. And then using the template again, you'll finish up and clean up your edges. If you're just using the standard template, you can decide on using the rectangle cutouts or the round cutouts. The round are for a 1-inch dowel that you can buy from a home improvement store, and the rectangle cutouts are for a piece of wood that if you choose to match it directly with the wood that you're using, you'll just want to cut strips on a table saw. To do this, you'll want to carefully plunge the router into the cutout space. Carefully move the router around the area using the guide of the template to carve out the shape with your hand router. You'll do this with all 4 pockets if you're using the dowel, or both rectangle pockets if you're using the rectangle legs on both the top and the bottom faces of the table. Make sure you choose the correct side of the template because you will be carving the top of the bottom piece and the bottom of the top piece. So make sure your show faces are the opposite or the same as what they should be. When you have finished using your router on your first piece of wood, carefully remove the template, take off the tape, and place new tape on the template to then do your other piece. Depending on the thickness of the wood that you choose, you'll want to use a flush trim bit on a router, and the bearing is set to match the top surface so that the bottom matches the top of your table. You'll use the router all the way around the piece and then copy exactly what we just did with the first one with the second one. If you have chosen to make the rectangular style legs, you'll need to use a table saw to cut your pieces of wood to the right width. Next, we'll move on to sanding. We recommend using an 80 grit piece of sandpaper, then 120, and then 150 after you insert your Miller dowels. I like to do most of the sanding while the table is unassembled and using my 80 grit to get it to be smooth, and then 120 to smoothen it out a little bit more, and then we'll use 150 at the end to clean it up. Make sure you get all of the edges, the top, the bottom, every surface of the tabletops and the legs that you can. Next, using the smaller acrylic template, you will pop that into your hole that you've chosen to use and mark in the dots. This marks your center, and you can drill these out using a Miller dowel bit, and then when you go to drill in your Miller dowels, you'll know exactly where they're supposed to be in the middle of the legs. I prefer pre-drilling this before assembly. That way it's a little bit easier once you have it mildly assembled. You can buy the Miller dowel kit in the link that we have provided to our Amazon storefront. Make sure you dry fit before adding any wood glue, and then you'll add wood glue to each part of the cutout and to the bottom of the legs, and carefully assemble the table into shape, using clamps if necessary to create a tighter fit. Whether you're using the rectangular legs or the dowel legs, cut your legs to the correct height and then assemble carefully. The next step is drilling for your Miller dowels using your Miller dowel bit. Carefully drill straight into where we had already pre-drilled the holes. I prefer to wait 30 minutes to an hour for the glue to dry during the first assembly, and then to drill for the miller dowel holes. Using your miller dowel bit, you'll drill down into each leg once or twice depending on the leg style that you choose, up into the line on the miller dowel bit. Apply a small amount of glue to each dowel and hammer it into place. They will pop out a little bit on the top and you'll have to remove that piece, but allow the glue to dry on the miller dowels into the table for at least 30 minutes to an hour before using an oscillating tool or a pull saw to cut them off. Once you have cut off the excess of the miller dowel, you'll follow up with 150 grit sandpaper using an orbital sander or just hand sanding. Once you're finished sanding, you can apply your stain or your polyurethane, whatever finish you are deciding to finish this table with. And congrats, you made a table. And if you have any questions, please follow up with us via email, and we'd be more than happy to help you.